we're trying to hold on so you can find a chair you would be happy to sit on and get tired of looking at it, because by the time it wears out, you're worn out. We want to give the world a reason to call it Chair City of the World. So we're last holdouts. And I've been doing that now for, last count, I was up to 70 plus years. And yes, I still do them. And when people wonder how I can do it with my vision gone, I tell them that the hands are making the seat, not the eyes. Well, I'm Lenny Curcio, president of Ralph Curcio Company Incorporated, a factory that now operates with 2 men left in our trade. I've been operating this at the head of the company since 1948. My father died at that point, and I got appointed to take over the charge that he was running. And we now, David and I, are second generation of the founders. His father, Bill Lettinen, passed on a few years back too, and they kept the building going long enough for us to take over and keep it going for until now. I'm the second generation of the founder, Ralph Curcio. Next door in the factory is David Lettinen, and he is the second generation of my father's partner. We too are now trying to keep the operation going of chair making in Gardner, and we are makers of ladder back chairs, the type of chair you can't seem to find in a store, because we're probably one of the last factories in this area that make them. We had made them in the past for factories that existed, making tables, making sofas, making everything else for the home. We had Sweat Cummings from Vermont, Richford, Vermont. We had Moosehead from Maine, and these are all gone now. We had Albert Locke from Gardner. We had Athol Table most recently. So there were probably about 15 or 20 of them spread around the area. People that wanted New England-made products. And we would sell them to them unfinished, let them put their own colors on. If they wanted to do their own stain, we give it to them before the seating, and then they'd bring it back and we put the seats in. So my weaving is done here in a constant turning motion like that until the hole's gone. Well, I was first brought in here because my father just expected, like any former Italian would, that the son was going to be in the same business. So they brought me in and taught me how to do fiber seating and everything else. I didn't do much machine work, I still don't. But that was my first job, and now at the age of 89, it's my last job.
It's my understanding that Ralph Curcio, my grandfather, was abandoned as a teenager when his family came from Italy, and the matriarch, the mother, passed away. And so his father remarried, and that woman didn't want someone else's children.
My father's father dropped them at an orphanage in Boston. So Anthony, my grandfather, was from Italy. My father was from Boston, and his brother. I don't know how he managed to do it, but he became a welder at the Quincy Navy Yard.
He was working as a welder at the Quincy shipyards, and he also worked at some antique store in Boston.
So what Lenny tells me is that his dad, worked in Boston in an antique shop on Tremont Street,
where they had him set up in a window as a window display doing the flag rush seats.
Someone from Nichols and Stone here in Gardner was in Boston, saw him doing the seats, and wrote a letter requesting that he come back to Gardner to do rush seating for Nichols and Stone. And through the process, he developed and had his own crew at Nichols and Stone's doing the rush seating.
He was officially invited by Nichols and Stone Company around 1920 to come into their plant and teach their workers how to do the rush seeds.
We came to Gardner in 1920 at their invitation, and they were doing Windsor-style chairs with the woven seats and the real rush. He had a company of men under his command with either 20 to 25 people at a time doing weaving on their chairs, and that went on a long time.
When Ralph Curcio came in to Nichols and Stone's, he really taught a lot of, the folks how to do that style of seating. And some of those folks went to other furniture factories. The labor force for furniture manufacturing was always there. So I think, people could easily go back and forth between companies and still feel comfortable and not really having to try have a new skill. And their skill was valued, that if one chair manufacturer wanted to try something different and try maybe rush seating, there was someone in town that knew how to do that.
And so he came and he set up shop there, and he branched out on his own. He had a company called the Flag Rush Company in the basement at the house my dad lives in still. And then from there, he did his share of getting to know people in the business, getting to pick their brains and learn what he could, and making deals on the golf course and at the bars. Sorry, that's the way it was back then. If it was who you know and what kind of deals you could strike.
And in 1938, he decided it was time to move on and take his own business. So he came to an empty factory complex, made an arrangement with the city to buy it, opened it from scratch with nothing in it at all, and gradually built up his product line with machinery that he could buy, one piece at a time, and it took many years to get complete, till the point where he finally got everything he needed to work in-house, not send out for anything, just the wood, and of course the finishing product. He took David Letnin's father, Bill Letnin, with him, and my father's brother-in-law, Ambrose Beaton. The three of them started the building from empty.
A lot of people call South Gardner as like the beginning of where Gardner was formed. So a lot of the first things happened here. We had the stagecoach. The South Gardner Hotel was built in the early 1800s, so that was there. A lot of the factories used the streams that came through South Gardner, so there was a lot of small factories here as well. When the turnpike changed in 1799, the 5th Massachusetts Turnpike came in and is now what Route 2A is. So Jonathan knew that the location of the main road was going to change, and built the house that you now see, just in front of the workshop for another public stop right on the main turnpike. But his son Walter had a small cooperage shop behind the house, and probably used the water power from the stream that ran through here. And at some point in time, I believe the date's 1827, converted it into a chair shop. And it became Greenwood Associates in the early 1900s. So they built the buildings that we're sitting in now and the chair shop next door.
We found in the history books and the history of the warehouse and the history of our files that Greenwood Associates had been a multi-million-dollar supplier of chairs countrywide. They had a rail spur right up to the back of the building.
And they went out of business around 1936, went bankrupt or whatever right after during the Depression. And then Lenny's family took over with David's family in 1938, and the Ralph Curcio company was formed and continued to make chairs here. With this place, with Greenwood Associates being closed in 1936 or so, and this building was taken over by the city for taxes, there was an opportunity to retake what was a chair manufacturing facility and, I guess, revive it. So my understanding is that Lenny's dad and David's dad, Bill, would did whatever they could to make the business go, and they would go to different shops at night after the regular workforce went through and used some of their machinery to keep things going until they could afford or find their own machinery. and that's how their business, kind of got started.
Well, it was a gutsy move, that's for sure. But he had had all he could take before, and that was just the determining factor. He found somebody to come with him, and they broke. He was a great friend of the mayor at the time, Mayor Fred Perry, and they were drinking buddies. And he made an offer to the city tax board, and they accepted it, and he bought the property for city taxes.
We used to be open until 8 o'clock on Tuesday nights, because Tuesday nights we could borrow help from the other factories to run some of our equipment.
He made friends in the industry. He had a lot of them. And all people that worked in different places or ran different shops that had a machine he could use, he would make a deal with them where he'd go in at 5 o'clock when the main crew was gone and use their machine for the part that he needed to do up until he got that same machine. So everything was done by take it in the back of the car, put it up to a factory, do the work on it, bring it back here, assemble it, and get it ready to ship. He just kept struggling to keep things going. Would buy a piece of machinery that was cast off from some factory, bring it in, utilize it, till we finally get to the point where he could do the whole chair here in-house. They had 3 guys, just the ones that I named. Then they finally got hold of a couple of designers for pattern making. 2 guys from Ashburnham, and they were fantastic. They made the patterns then that we still use. The ones that worked here had to learn each machine because there'll be a process of stepping from this job to that one to that one. When the crew was here, there was one fella assigned to the lathe. There was another one assigned to cutting. We had 2 table saws. Another one with bandsaw. We take the stick, the dowel, in round. David puts it in the lathe, makes the formation that we want, carries it from that point over to a cutoff saw, sends it downstairs to the basement where we did the steam bending, bring it back up to the 3rd floor, cut the fittings, put everything together, take it into the spray booth on the 2nd floor, then bring it downstairs to the seaters. They would put the seats in and send it back upstairs for the final finish coat. There was 4 seats, 2 each, one behind each other, 2 beside each other. And there was a corner set up just for the seating. So the chair frame would come down, be put into our department, and we'd start working on it. 3 of us were kids in high school. 2 of them were Bill's uncles that worked nights here. We even had a night crew, because we had orders that were keeping us here, working all the time. And it involved bandsaw, lathe, a sanding machine, spindle sander, bandsawing out the slats in the back so they had the form you wanted. Then it would go back to David to finish in the finishing booth. And way back, we had a nice old lady named Lena who did all the sanding and working in between the finishing coats. To begin with, the finishing was done, the staining was done in a tub. And take the chair and dip it in a tank and roll it until you got all the parts stained. Take it out, put it on a dryer, wait for it to drip off, then put a sealer coat on it, then put the seating to it, back up to the finishing room for the final coat. Process today is only changed in one way. We spray that stain on. And the people that worked here with him had to learn every job so that they could fill in when somebody was ill or missing. And that continued right up till now. David and I are the last 2 in the business, and we're still doing the same. David doing all the major work, and I just sit here and seat and weave and brag. I'm here because, thank God, I got something to do.